Hey, my first grade friends, it's Mrs. Real here with another insect lesson for you today. So I have another one of our blue insect books to go through. Last week when we went through ours, the story that I read to you, we were looking for bugs, thinking most of them were insects. And then there was a couple that weren't really insects. We were busy checking to see if they had a head, a thorax, an abdomen, 6 legs, antennas. And there was a couple that didn't fit that pattern. But there was a couple that we thought they probably could be insects. And I told you that this week's lesson would help us decide why they were going to eventually be insects. So I have that book for us today. And I found something exciting in my refrigerator that's going to help us be part of, it's going to be part of this lesson at the end. And then after that, I have another story for you that I'll add in a different video that goes along so nicely with our insect discussion. So again, this is one of our nonfiction books. Nonfiction meaning it's going to teach us things. It has a table of contents. It has great pictures. It has words in bold print that are going to be in our glossary, our special dictionary at the back. And then we are going to also get to see some, near the pictures, they also give us a description of what's going on. So this is called The Lives of Insects. We're going to find out what goes on with our insect friends. This first page is a great picture of an ant. And as we look at the side view of him, we can see his head, his thorax, his abdomen. You can see 1, 2, 3 legs on this side, 3 legs on the other side. That might even be a picture of his antenna coming out. And I can see some mouth parts down here. What I'm really curious about are, what are these white things? Let's see if they let us know. In our table of contents, we're going to learn about the lives of insects. This great word, metamorphosis, I bet it's going to be in dark black letters. Their adult lives, and about being cold-blooded. We talked a little bit about that last week. Then in our glossary, our great dictionary, we're going to find out those special words, the place for some further reading if we're interested in what's going on here, and our index that's kind of like a table of contents, but it's at the back and it helps us find things a different way. So you get to see the great picture of this beautiful dragonfly. Well, I read, Lives of Insects. You have no doubt met plenty of insects. You've seen them in your house, at your school, and outdoors. Insects can live almost anywhere. A very few even live in icy Antarctica. Insects are small, 6-legged animals without bones. The smallest among them is the fairy fly. It's so small, it can walk through a hole in a salt shaker. Even the largest insect, a species or kind of moth, is only 11 inches across. So remember last week I had my ruler out and we were measuring 7.5 inches was a big one that was almost as big as this book. So 11 inches would be just about the size of this book. It says insects live almost everywhere, from our houses and backyards to oceans, beaches, forests, and beyond. This damselfly is in a marsh. And you can see the great drops of dew or condensation on those sparkly veined wings. That's pretty beautiful. Here's one of our camouflage friends. Scientists say there are perhaps 10 million species of insects, and in each square mile of land, there may be billions of insects. One reason that insects are so plentiful is because of their small size. They can hide easily, and they can live on small amounts of food. Part of their success, too, is the ability of most insects to fly. Flight helps them escape from enemies and find food quickly. So an insect's small size, wings, and ability to hide help it dodge many animals that would like to eat it. Plus, I think he blends in pretty nicely with that leaf, so they're hard to find. Here's our big word, metamorphosis. It's in dark black letters down here. Insects tend to have short lives. However, they make others of their kind easily and often. That ability to reproduce helps insects survive in a world full of enemies. Insects grow to adulthood by going through several different stages or steps in life. Different species follow different steps. Most insects follow one of 2 paths to adulthood. Both paths are known as metamorphosis. The big word basically means to undergo change. So this is a moth. First it lays eggs. Those eggs turn into caterpillars. Then they have a pupa stage where they go into a cocoon, and then they come out as a moth. The changes during an insect's metamorphosis are often amazing. The whole process can take several days, or in the case of cicadas, 17 years. So that's kind of like you guys having to grow up from a baby to an adult. It takes about 17 years. One type of metamorphosis has 3 life stages. The other has 4. In 3-stage or incomplete metamorphosis, insects are eggs, then nymphs, then adults. In 4-stage or complete metamorphosis, insects are eggs, larvae, pupas, and adults. Most insects go through 4 stages. So this is the 2nd stage of metamorphosis of a moth. So moths lay eggs. Those eggs hatch and the caterpillar comes out. This is a saddleback moth caterpillar. This caterpillar will spin its cocoon and metamorphosize into a moth. This is the larva stage of a scarab beetle. It's called a grub. Grubs look nothing like their adult parents. This does not look like a beetle. If you have a garden or a flower bed and you're digging in the dirt, you can sometimes find grubs. They're usually not good in your garden and flower beds because they like to eat the seeds and the roots and the leaves and everything else because they're hungry and they eat a lot. These brown things are dragonfly nymphs. So dragonflies go through the incomplete metamorphosis. They have eggs, they turn into nymphs, they hatch out, and they live underwater. Dragonflies don't live underwater, but the dragonfly nymph does. And then as an adult, they live near the water, but they don't live in the water. So these will turn into dragonflies. Before insects become adults, most of them look nothing like their adult stage. They may even live in different surroundings. The wingless nymphs of dragonflies, for instance, live underwater. Insect larvae are wingless and eyeless. Many are legless. They look like worms. Butterfly and moth larvae are known as caterpillars. Housefly larvae are maggots, and beetle larvae are grubs. When a larva reaches full size, it quits eating. Then it becomes a pupa. So this is that moth caterpillar. So an egg hatched, a caterpillar came out, then it grows and weaves itself a cocoon. It's got silken leaves that it curls around itself, and it stays in here, metamorphosizing. Its whole body changes into something completely different. And this one is a butterfly, but that's kind of the same thing. The best known pupas are those of butterflies and moths. They live in coverings called cocoons or chrysalises. This is a chrysalis of a butterfly. It's the same thing for a moth, but it's called a cocoon. It's that wrapping, that covering that they are in, kind of like a big old sleeping bag that they go into, but their body totally changes. They went in as a caterpillar, they come out as this. Pupas don't eat, but they do undergo great body changes. In the pupa stage, a butterfly changes into an adult. When the changes are finished, an adult butterfly crawls out of the chrysalis. Adult lives, what do they do now that they're an adult? An adult insect's main jobs are to feed itself and raise a new family before dying. Some adult insects don't even eat. They live just long enough to mate and lay eggs. Many adult insects lead short but fascinating lives. For an insect, life is all business. But people often take pleasure in the working lives of insects. The songs of many insects, for example, may be a summer night's music to people, but the insect's noisemakers are hard at work trying to win mates. This moth that they're showing here says it doesn't even eat when it becomes an adult. He stays alive only long enough to mate and lay eggs. And can you see those gorgeous feathery antennae that we saw in some other moth pictures? Insects don't have voices. They make noises by rubbing one part of their body against another. A short-horned grasshopper rubs a hind leg against its forewing. Crickets rub their wings together. Cicadas have built-in drums in their abdomens. All insect sounds have a purpose. A female mosquito's buzzing wing sounds draw the attention of male mosquitoes, for example. So this is a dragonfly. It's vibrating its wings, it's flapping its wings, because last week we talked a little bit about these insects are cold-blooded. They are only as warm as it is outside or whatever place they are. So in the morning, it's been cold overnight, they have to set out in the sun and get their blood pumping and get everything going. So they'll flap their wings to help get them warmed up. Insects are cold-blooded animals. That means their body temperature is controlled by the air or water temperature around them. During chilly nights and mornings, insects are cool. They're too cool to stir. In fact, they can't be active until the sun warms them. Some insects help warm themselves by moving their wing muscles rapidly without actually flying. So they don't go anywhere. They just hold on tight to their stick or their leaves, and then they'll flap their wings, kind of like doing exercises. All right, so in that story that we read last week, the one where you were going on a walk and there was something on the wall and something in the bushes and something in the dirt, there were a couple of places where there was a caterpillar. And I said the caterpillar didn't fit our description of an insect. It didn't have 6 legs, and it didn't look like it really had a separate head, thorax, abdomen. It had a lot of legs, it was long, but we now know that it's going to caterpillars turn into butterflies or moths. So that caterpillar was one of the stages in the life of the insect. It had been an egg, it was now a caterpillar. That was its larva stage. It would soon spin a cocoon, a chrysalis, and stay inside and then metamorphosize and come out as either a moth or a butterfly. So the caterpillar itself isn't actually an insect, but it's the stage that the insect goes through to become the full-grown adult insect. So I said earlier that I made a great discovery in my refrigerator, of all places, this weekend, because several months ago, when Greta the hedgehog first came to live at my house, hedgehogs sometimes like to eat mealworms. So I went to the store and I got a container. It was actually in this container, a whole bunch of mealworms. And you keep them in the refrigerator because then they're cold-blooded animals. They don't move around. They don't change a whole lot. They just stay in the refrigerator with the lid on. Greta doesn't like to eat mealworms. And I forgot that the mealworms were in the door of my refrigerator until I was cleaning. Mr. Real cleaned it out this weekend, actually. And I said, oh, I wonder if they're still in there, or have they already done their metamorphosizing? So I went in there today before I got ready for this lesson, and I discovered, oh, I don't want to dump these all over the house. They're still alive. Now, not all of them. The dark brown parts are not alive anymore, like that one. I'll throw those away in a few minutes. But the others, can you see them? As soon as they got warm, they started moving around. So I am going to keep these growing, and hopefully we'll get to watch them go through their stages of metamorphosis. So you guys had some mealworms. Some of you got to start with your mealworms before we went on spring break. Others of you didn't yet. So now we get to do it together in my house, under my camera. These actually look really big. So they did grow a little bit while they were in the coldness. But I will include videos of them as we go on with our next few weeks of insect lessons. Hoping I can get one and put him over here on the side. Because remember I said they look like a worm. I'm going to try to hold him up. He's on his side. Can you see? There is at the very tip. there is a section, there's his legs. Did you see him? Oh, he just rolled himself over and now he's moving. So in our book, it said that the larva stage, they're usually eyeless. They don't have wings like insects would. Some do. They don't always have legs, but our mealworms have 6 legs. So they might not look like what they're going to turn out to be when they're totally done, but they do at least have those 6 legs already going for them. So they started as eggs. There may be some eggs in here somewhere. I don't know. But I know that they're now in this stage, and I cannot wait to see what happens next. In fact, I wonder, after these guys totally change and become adults, it says that their larva stage doesn't look necessarily like they do as adults. What do you think these are going to turn into once we watch them change and grow? Maybe you could do a journal activity with that, where you write about what you think is going to happen to our larva mealworms and what you think they might look like when they're grown. So I'm going to stop this recording for now. I'll be back with you next week with another blue book and some other activities. We'll check in on our mealworms, and I'm going to make a separate recording of the story that I have for our insect lives that we learned about today. So I will see you again, first grade friends. Be back next week with another update on our mealworms and another book and another story. Bye.